Hi everyone and welcome to another review here on Theme Park Worldwide. In this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on Furious Baco, a wing coaster that's located at PortAventura World in Spain. Now, Furious Baco opened in 2007 and was manufactured by Intamin. What makes this ride so special is the fact that it was actually the only one of this style of Intamin wing coaster to be built. After this ride, Intamin completely changed their design for the wing coaster with future models. And people who've been on Furious Baco might be thinking, yes, I can see why they did that. This ride has got quite a reputation for being pretty rough, and I've said it myself over the years, it is quite a rough coaster, but as you're going to find out in this review, it might be rough, but I've got a bit of a soft spot for it. There is something about Furious Baco that I absolutely love. The theme of it, the ride experience, there's just something about it that I find really unique, and the fact that it's the only one of that style of Intamin wing coasters to be built, you know what, I'm quite glad it's kept that, because this ride is a little bit crazy. The theme's crazy, the ride's crazy. Let's get straight into it. So, as always with these reviews, I like to talk a bit about the location within the park. Now, Furious Baco, you can't miss this one. Literally, you head into PortAventura Park, you walk around the Mediterranean themed area, which is beautiful. All the Spanish buildings, there's flowers out everywhere, lots of different alfresco dining options, really nice area of the park. And no matter where you want to go at PortAventura Park, you have to walk right past Furious Baco's entrance and actually underneath the coaster. You can't miss it. It's got a bright blue track with like a cream support structure, but it fits in beautifully with the Mediterranean area. Bear in mind that the park opened back in 1995, but this coaster wasn't added until 2007. I can't really imagine Mediterranean without it now. It just fits in beautifully with that finale that comes right over the water and up into the brake run. Now, you make your way to the entrance of this ride. You've got all these lovely flowers all out the front of it. You've got the ride's logo, which is certainly interesting. It doesn't give too much away about the theme. And then you have to actually climb up a few steps to get into the queue line, and the queue line actually starts to make its way up a bit of a hill. And you're actually walking through a vineyard, and that's what kind of all adds to the theme of this ride, because let's face it, the theme of Furious Baco is very strange, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But you're walking up through, there's a cattle pen queue line actually in the vineyard. I remember going a year after it opened and waiting in all of that cattle pen queue line for about 3.5 hours. Luckily, it doesn't tend to get that big of a queue all the way down there these days, but it's still a very popular ride, especially at the start and end of the day because of the location. Everybody has to walk past it to get in, and everybody has to walk past it to get out. So you're best hitting it up sort of in the middle of the day or in the afternoon. So yes, you've walked up, you've got some little covered areas of the queue line as well, and then you've got this ginormous palm tree, which is stunning to look at, and then the station building, which is kind of an open station. It's got some nice archways. The architecture is very Spanish, that Mediterranean feel that it's got there. What you kind of expect really from a themed area in Spain. It's absolutely gorgeous. You then make your way into the indoor part of the queue line, where you're really starting to think the theme for this is strange. You've got this these bottles that are kind of cycling round on this motor, and then you make your way into a large indoor cattle pen queue. It's PortAventura, so there's going to be some cattle pens, of course. But inside there, you've got all these cabinets that have got pieces of machinery in, and you're thinking, this is all very strange. And then once you've made it through that cattle pen, you go upstairs, kind of up a bit of a ramp into another cattle pen, all undercover this part, and you need it in the Spanish heat, especially in the summer. And what's really interesting with this is you've got like these sets of cogs that spin round. Now, they actually used to, you have to spin it round to walk through near the entrance, which was really good. They actually changed that a few years ago and took some of that out, so it stays at the side, but yeah, when it opened, you had to actually push this wooden beam around, which would spin the cogs, which was quite cool. You can still do that effect, I believe, but now you don't have to do it to walk through. And then you arrive to this huge open station, and this is the point now where I'm going to explain the theme for those of you that aren't aware of it. You might have even been on this ride and struggled to work out the theme. I thought that when I first went on it, but let me explain the theme thanks to PortAventura's website and their official way of what Furious Baco exactly is. So basically you've got this professor that's preparing to launch his new grape collecting machine, and of course you go through this vineyard. He's making wine basically, so that's why you go through all this vineyard, all the the grapes, and he's preparing to launch this grape collecting machine. The footage I'm showing you here, by the way, is actually from the onboard pre-show, but more about that shortly. Along with that, he's got his assistant, which is a monkey, who actually pulls the wrong lever, causing the contraption to go out of control and then the train to catapult. So that's the theme behind this. It's a Spanish vineyard where you've got all of the grapes, and he's creating this new machine to help collect grapes. That's the theme for this Intamin wing coaster. How very strange, but I love it. Let's talk about the station then. So like I say, it's kind of open, but you have got a roof, and it's got walls kind of part way up in there. However, you can see out. You get some stunning views actually from the station. And you look up and you can actually see a monkey swinging side to side with the sound effect playing, which is quite cool. And then of course you're greeted by the train right in front of you, and the train design on this is certainly very different because there's no other roller coaster trains like this in the world. Like I say, this is the only one that Intamin made of this style. Now 24 riders can be seated on Furious Baco. Now there's 6 rows, 2 riders on each side, so it's 4 per row, but it's 2 on each wing. And this is where it differs compared to the likes of a B&M wing coaster, where of course you're familiar with, you actually load on both sides, don't you? Like if you're on the other wing, you'll actually climb over the track, over some steps to the other side of the station. Not with how Intamin designed this, and of course some of their other wing coasters, but with this you actually walk over the train, which I find very strange, the way it's been designed like that. You actually walk over the train to get to the other side, which is a bit of a trip hazard, but you've got the barrels like in the middle of the train, part of them's flat, and then you can walk over them, so very interesting. Now it's actually got an over-the-shoulder restraint in place with a click-fix seat belt as well on there. I don't find the restraints to be too uncomfortable, to be honest. I don't really feel like that's the main issues with the ride. I feel like the train is part of the problem, but not so much that, and I'll explain that a little bit later in my review about the train design and how I feel like that affects the ride experience. But like I say, what's great with this is there's no floor under you, whether you're on the inner part of the wing or the outer. Every seat on this ride, all 24 riders, your legs are dangling freely on this ride, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's very strange how you cross over into the middle. This has actually varied over the past few years. There were some double doors when this opened, big wooden doors that used to open, then close, so you didn't actually see the launch taking place. That was switched off, I believe, for years and years. And then a few years ago, they actually put in a roller door now, what lifts up and down. So basically that lifts up, you are dispatched, and off you go to start your experience on Furious Baco. So it's kind of that mysterious element, and that adds to the overall thing. There's actually no place where you can watch the launch. There's nowhere in the park where you can see the launch take place. Not from ground level anyway, maybe from up higher on a ride, but not so much from down on the park. So, you know, a lot of parks actually put in viewing areas, don't they, for the launches. Not with Furious Baco. You wouldn't even know it was a launch coaster unless you're an enthusiast or, you know, you'd maybe been on it before. But yeah, it's a bit of a mystery with this. But you make it to this onboard pre-show where you are greeted by the professor on a couple of screens which are up there above you. Now, as soon as you move in, you can see him tweaking with this machine. His pet monkey actually comes cycling in when it's all working from the side. And what actually happens is here, lots of different sound effects building up that storyline, and then of course he kind of tells his monkey to kind of, oh hang on a minute, wait there, don't touch anything. However, the monkey goes on to touch this lever. The professor then goes flying off the screen to these cogs on the right hand side, what starts spinning round, and you actually see the professor spinning round and he's going whoa on the audio, and then at this point the actual train moves forward slightly and then backwards. I imagine that's just as it's kind of engaging onto that catch car, what of course is going to pull it forwards on the launch. But yeah, it's all very dramatic with the pre-show video, and you can see that here in high quality, exactly what you're seeing. It's very strange, but I do love it. And then at that point, the wine actually then starts to fill up on the screens, and you can actually see it raising up, and that is the point when you go. So there's no like 3, 2, 1 countdown or anything like that. It's just the anticipation. You think you see all this go wrong, and then off you go, launching straight out from 0 to 83.9 miles per hour in 3.5 seconds. And the launch on Furious Baco is absolutely incredible. It's not actually a flat launch. It's got a bit of an incline onto it, which is great. and it's just so forceful. Like, that launch is absolutely incredible. In fact, it's one of my favourite launches, especially on the front row, because you're kind of in an air-conditioned building where the pre-show is, and in the summer the heat just hits you when you go out there. And the fact it's hidden, it's so mysterious, I do really like that. Now, this is where I want to talk more about the train design. With this, it's a rough ride. Like, there's no doubt about it. No matter where you sat, it's a rough ride. There's some seats where it's more comfortable. I'd say the further you are towards the front, the more comfortable it is. If you're on the front inner seat of the wing, then yes, it is more comfortable than the back outer, for example. A lot more comfortable. Now, one of the reasons why I think Intamin have not built another one of these is due to that train design, and I really feel like that's why it affects the ride experience. Like I said before, you actually have to cross over the middle to get onto the other side, and also when you offload at the end of the ride, you have to cross over the barrel. So I find it really interesting how Intamin actually designed this. If you look at the B&M wing coasters, you kind of sitting more at the side of the track. Like, you can't see the other riders on the other side because you are next to the track. So say, you know, this is the track just here, you're sitting down here. On the Intamin wing coaster Furious Baco, you're actually sitting above the track just here. And I know they've kind of gone on to do that with their other wing coasters too, but it's a lot better designed than how Furious Baco was. You are pretty high up, and I feel like that is why this ride is so rough, because you're not just on a wing, but you're also higher up than the track on this side instead of being lower and next to it. I think that's why there's so many issues with it. But still, once you get to the end of that absolutely fantastic launch, you then get some brilliant airtime. No matter where you sat, but especially on the back row, you get some brilliant airtime because, of course, the launch is on this angle and then it dips down. When you actually go down into some trenches at this point, they're not covered over, they're open trenches, but there's no theming around there, but you can kind of get away with it. You're kind of in this vineyard, they've got all them plants all around still. But to be honest, at this point, you've been bashed about that much that you don't really care what you're looking at. You bank round to the right-hand side before turning slightly left again through a tunnel, bog standard concrete tunnel. Why they didn't just steam that up, put some barrels in there or something, I don't know. But you go through this tunnel. It's a figure of 8 layout with Furious Baco as well. So you're going through S-bends on a figure of 8. And it's not a very tall ride either. It's very low to the ground. It covers the terrain pretty much. And then, of course, you start to lift up a little bit before banking round to the left and into the one inversion on this ride, which is an inline twist to the left. And this is brilliant because you get a fantastic amount of just seeing all these bushes underneath you, and it's just whizzing past you at the side. The near misses on this, head choppers are incredible. In fact, I've had my hands up on there before and I've actually touched branches before on the ground. Like, that is how close you are. I've touched some of the vineyards there. Sorry, Professor, I do apologise. Oh, you can't worry about it now. He's been crushed by the machine in the pre-show. But yeah, you go into that, which is brilliant, especially if you are sat on the left-hand side, because like I say, you really get swung down to the side. But which side you're on, it's great, but I do prefer it on the left. Just because of that. I just prefer going into it that way. On the right, it's great and you get more of a flip round, but it's just something about being on the left that I enjoy the most about that. Following on from that, you sort of drop down to the left into the big finale of the ride. It's not a long layout, but you've got to think with the speed you're going as well, the fact that it doesn't really have loads of massive drops and it's only got one inversion, it keeps up the pace. Like, it comes into their brakes with some speed at the end. So because it's quite a terrain ride, then yeah, you know, it keeps up that pace, so it's still going really fast. So as much as it is quite a short layout, it's still not one of the shortest track lengths out there. It's more the fact you're going through it at some pace, some speed. But you go into this beautiful section which is over the water, and then it banks round to the left. Like I say, if you're on the left hand side, you can kind of put your hand out and feel like you can touch the water. You can't touch it, but it feels just nice and refreshing, getting the wind blowing onto your face, and then you're up into the brake run, and one of the worst transitions into a brake run ever. Like, literally, you're on that angle and then it's boom, straight away, and you actually, when you're standing off ride watching Furious Baco, you see the train just jolt to the side as it goes into the brake run. And then, of course, you've made it and you make your way into the station area. There used to actually be a separate offload point for Furious Baco, but now they just use the same area. It used to run 3 trains too, now it only runs 2. But yeah, you know, it's amazing how these rides are designed and things change over the years. But yeah, with it getting around the circuit so quick, they probably just couldn't get the trains out there quick enough. So 2 is the best sort of option for them. It wouldn't benefit it running on 3 because you'd always have 3 mostly stacked up, whilst of course, you know, you've got one going round, but most of the time you still have three there stacked up really, just because of how quick the ride is and how slow the throughputs are there. So I can kind of understand why they're just doing it on the two now. But there you go, that's Furious Backhoe. Like I say, I do feel like the train design does kind of take away from the experience a little bit. The fact that, you know, it does make it so rough. But then it leads me on to think, is that part of why people love this ride? And the public really enjoy Furious Backhoe. I do really like it. Yes, it can be really rough and uncomfortable. On the back row sometimes, especially on the wing, right on the outside, it can be unbearable. However, it's still a very unique ride. It's the only one of its type to have been built of that style that Intamin did. He went on and changed the wing coaster design, and I'm glad they did. However, I do still like Furious Backhoe and what they did with it. And the theme around this ride, the location, is fantastic. One thing I just need to mention as well about this is the soundtrack. I absolutely adore the soundtrack. It's like all these bells ringing and bottles sort of banging together. It's a very interesting soundtrack. If you get the chance to listen to it, have a listen. It's a great soundtrack. And just imagine walking up that queue line, hearing that, and hearing the screams of terror of people enjoying this rough ride on the Intamin wing coaster. And then yeah, imagine the feel that you're at Portaventura with that. But there you go. Have you been on Furious Backhoe? I'd love to know down below in the video comments. Maybe you think I'm absolutely mad enjoying this ride, or maybe you kind of think, you know what, I agree with Sean, it's a great coaster. It's forceful, it's intense, it's got a fantastic inversion with a great near-miss element. It's an overall great ride. Yes, it is uncomfortable, but that's part of the experience, isn't it? Or I'd like to think so anyway. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the video comments. Check out our many other reviews here on Theme Park Worldwide, and of course we film brand new videos every single day here on the channel. Thanks for joining me, Sean Sandbrook, reviewing Furious Backhoe at Portaventura World, and that leaves me with one final thing to say. Get out there and keep on riding. See you soon.